In the world of blockchain, tokenomics is the engine that drives success. It determines adoption, incentivizes users, and keeps your ecosystem thriving. But without careful design and auditing, tokenomics can lead to imbalance, instability, or even project failure. Poorly designed models can cause inflation, loss of trust, or unsustainable rewards. That's why getting your tokenomics right is so critical. A well-audited tokenomics model ensures transparency, sustainability, and alignment with your project's vision. The right tokenomics doesn't just build trust, it can skyrocket your project's valuation. By creating a balanced ecosystem, you attract investors, retain users, and unlock massive growth potential. Don't leave your project's success to chance. Partner with experts who design and audit tokenomics that work. TheDataScientist.com, shaping the future of blockchain, one token at a time.
Welcome to this presentation about Token Lab, an introduction for tokenomists and non-tokenomists. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about Token Lab, which is an agent-based modeling simulations library for token economies. It's a project that I've been working on for a year, using my many years of expertise in this area. And my aim is to essentially explain what Token Lab is, why it's needed, and how you can use it. So first of all, a trip down memory lane. Let's start with the birth of tokenomics. So we're in 2017. This is when tokenomics first becomes a thing. These are the days when ICOs, like the days of ICOs for those of you who were there, like Ethereum, anyone could create their own token on Ethereum and try to raise money through an ICO and so on and so forth. And I found this area very interesting, and I published an article called Why We Need Tokenomics, and I also did some work in agent-based modeling at that time. So I found myself being one of the innovators in this space. There was a point where this article was ranked #1 in Google for the keyword tokenomics, and I just found myself starting off by doing research and eventually getting dragged into this space in a commercial capacity. And so now a large part of my work is actually in this area, which I very much enjoy. Back then, tokenomics was a bit crude, for lack of a better word. So there were many tokens without any real utility as a replacement for fiat. So tokens were like coupons. And obviously, many of those models just died. And one of the main learnings from that era, which obviously carries on to this era, is that tokenomics need to be sustainable, right? So any design needs to be sustainable. You need to understand inflows, outflows. And the main technology back then was pretty basic. It was mostly just spreadsheets. But then I was one of the first ones to propose the use of agent-based models. The equation of exchange also has been a mechanism for valuations that was initially proposed by Vitalik Buterin, which is imperfect, but it can still be quite useful. It has been going on, around for a while. But these are like some of the main tools that we have. So obviously, since 2017 until now, there's been more sophistication, not only tokenomics, but also in the space as a whole, all right? So there were some innovations like DeFi that weren't really around back then. And agent-based modeling has become more popular than ever with tools like machinations and CAD. However, many people still live and die by spreadsheets, right? So for better or for worse, this is what is happening. But even the spreadsheets themselves are quite sophisticated, right? So this essentially the sophistication, the methods reflects also the increasing sophistication of the actual underlying area of tokenomics as well as blockchain and Web3. And where we currently stand is that tokenomics is still a fledgling science, so it's a relatively new field. Obviously, economics itself is not a new field, but tokenomics is. And for better or for worse, agent-based modeling is not the standard. And I believe that it's still probably the best way to go about tokenomics, the best way to study token economies. There are still many questions about how do you value a token, different methods, and things like that. And this is why I created Token Lab, essentially. I created Token Lab because I'm trying to create some standards in this area, in this field. It's very fascinating, the fascinating field of tokenomics, and allow anyone to experiment with different ideas and decide, by using real data, whether, whether what they do makes sense or not. So Tokenlab is a library written in Python. You can install it using pip. And it's based upon the following principles: modularity, explicitness, intermediate level of abstraction, focus on the economy, and flexibility. So what the first principle means is that it's created as a bunch of independent modules, which there's a logic in how they're connected, but this also allows for a lot of flexibility. Then the modules, each module is explicit, that is, it's focused on doing only one thing, like being a treasury or being a pricing function or being a user base or something like that. So you don't have modules which are like intermixed, but they can be interconnected. There's an intermediate level of abstraction. This means that we strive for a balance between microeconomics and macroeconomics. So we don't model agents as individuals, but you make use of probability distributions in order to model agent aggregates. There's a focus on the economy, so Token Labs tools are focused on answering questions about a token economy and performing things such as stress tests. So in this regard, it's more about studying what the worst possible outcome could be instead of the best. And then flexibility. Token Lab is designed in a way that it offers maximum flexibility to those who desire it, so it's very hackable in that sense. And there are some key primitives, which obviously I'm going to keep extending as time goes by, and this is where community feedback is also very important. These principles is first of all the token economy, so that's an object on its own, and you can have multiple token economies if you so wish, interacting with each other. Then agent pools. An agent pool is at the core of a token economy, and token token economy can have multiple agent pools. Agent pools, then they have users as well as controllers, as well as transactions controllers to determine the transaction behavior. Then and various add-ons like active users, white noise, things like that. Then there are also some mechanisms to model different holding times of the different agent pools or aggregates, as well as pricing mechanisms. So the idea behind Token Lab is that anyone should be able to define a token economy in a few lines. And you see this example here. I'm going to show you a notebook in a second. So you define, for example, an agent pool with 10,000 users and steady monthly transactions of $1,000 per month. Again, very basic example. You define the expected holding time, total supply, name of the token, initial price. You add this to a token pool, and then a token economy, and then you run a token meta simulator, which runs multiple simulations over a token, over a token economy, and then gives you the final results, right? So you get graphs like this one, and the core valuation methods for now, they're first of all the equation of exchange, and secondly a linear regression adaptation of that model, which is something that I did in collaboration with University College London, and this work is going to be published pretty soon in the next few months or so. And also, Token Lab allows for arbitrary complexity. So there's stochastic components, there are conditional agent pools. Conditional agent pools are agent pools which respond to certain incentives. Like, for example, you can have a group of speculators which get activated only when the price reaches a certain level. You can do all sorts of things. But obviously, the code gets more complicated the more of those things you add, right? So eventually, I hope to create some kind of interface, like a UX UI around it, so it will be easier to play around with these sorts of things. And that's like a very high level overview of Token Lab. I hope you found this useful. I just wanted to go on this tab and just show you some of the examples. Understand there might be a lot going on here, but if you go on GitHub, on the Token Lab repo, and you go under the notebook section, you're going to find a lot of examples as to how you can create different simulations. And we also have a very active Telegram community. So if you drop me a message, I'll be more than happy to add you to it. And I'm always very happy to answer any questions, even make improvements on Token Lab based upon your suggestions, right? So I just wanted to show you, like, the basic example you saw earlier is really reflected on this first spreadsheet, where you can see how we run like very basic simulations. Obviously, the simulation is like pretty trivial. We have a token that goes from close to 0.1 cents to 0.09, just to show how it all works. But what you can see here is that Token Lab does a lot of this data analysis work for you. It offers flexibility. This is, for example, a type of user growth you can have. You can have user growth that saturate over a point. This is all like coded in a way where you can say, hey, I just want a log saturated space user growth, and just Token Lab gets it for you, all this kinds of stuff. It's the same with supply schedules. We have staking. I've added all kinds of functionality, stakers. So you have like special agent pools for this with all kinds of APY, different lockup durations. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. And again, everything's created in a very object-oriented way. So if you just ping me on Telegram and say, hey, I want to simulate this or that project, and can you help me with do X, Y, Z? More than happy to do this, right? So more than happy to add this functionality because it might be useful for me later on. So here you see an example of supply in this example. Like you can get all these graphs for different simulations, and you can also get an interesting thing around the simulations is you also get these confidence intervals when we're talking about the price. So you can see best and worst case scenarios for different valuation models. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot going on here. And again, this is just a short introduction to make you aware of the package. I'd really like you to use it. I hope it's not intimidating. And again, if there's like any suggestions, any recommendations, I'm more than happy to provide this. I'm more than happy to make the required changes. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here in this short webinar. And again, yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, send me an email. I can send you the link to the Telegram group, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
In the world of blockchain, tokenomics is the engine that drives success. It determines adoption, incentivizes users, and keeps your ecosystem thriving. But without careful design and auditing, tokenomics can lead to imbalance, instability, or even project failure. Poorly designed models can cause inflation, loss of trust, or unsustainable rewards. That's why getting your tokenomics right is so critical. A well-audited tokenomics model ensures transparency, sustainability, and alignment with your project's vision. The right tokenomics doesn't just build trust, it can skyrocket your project's valuation. By creating a balanced ecosystem, you attract investors, retain users, and unlock massive growth potential. Don't leave your project's success to chance. Partner with experts who design and audit tokenomics that work. TheDataScientist.com, shaping the future of blockchain, one token at a time.
Tokenomics, design, auditing, and simulations. We're in bull run territory, and what this means is that there's a huge opportunity for Web3 entrepreneurs to become rich and Web3 projects to become exponentially successful. And in this presentation, we're going to explain how you can achieve this through sound tokenomics. So the market is rebounding, and what we're witnessing right now is a surge of new users and more liquidity. So it's a matter of time until we reach peak FOMO. So this is when a large amount of money will flood into the market, investing in different projects. And we're talking about institutional money, we're talking about retail money, we're talking about angel investors, VCs, everyone. A key to succeeding in this environment is having the right tokenomics in place. And we're going to explain more about tokenomics and how you can achieve this. First of all, a brief history of tokenomics. So tokenomics was created as a field through the invention of Ethereum. So Ethereum created the first virtual computer on a blockchain, and it allowed anyone to create their own token on Ethereum. So Ethereum democratized the cryptocurrency space, and it allowed the creation of tokens with programmable properties. This led to what is now referred to as the ICO boom in around 2017, that is the initial coin offering boom. And there were many projects raising money in this type of manner, where they had a programmable token and you could deposit money in exchange for this token. So this created the first big bull run in cryptocurrencies history. And then the space evolved over time to the extent that we have many different areas now in the crypto space with complicated tokenomics. Tokenomics way more fascinating than anything we had in the past in areas like DeFi, that is decentralized finance, gaming, NFTs, metaverse, and many more. So tokenomics design is about building economies on a blockchain with purpose. So there are many different aspects that need to be taken into account when building a token economy. Some of those are sustainability of token economy. You want to make sure that it's going to last for a long time, ideally forever. You want to make sure you have the right incentives in place. You also want to make sure that the token retains its value, and also it's a leader in the market, because Web3 can be a very crowded market. And these are the key areas that a project needs to take into account when designing tokenomics. First of all, the incentive structures in between the different agents of the ecosystem. Then the token distribution. It's important to make sure that the token distribution supports the long-term and the short-term objectives. Utility and governance, especially utility, is extremely important because it's one of the factors that is going to determine the long-term success of the project. And finally, the economic modeling. So it's important to make sure that the token economy can scale and then appreciate in value over time. So tokenomics auditing is the cousin of tokenomics design. The difference being that in tokenomics design, we care about creating a token economy from scratch, whereas in auditing, we take an existing token economy or a designed token economy, and then we stress test it. So the objective of tokenomics auditing is to prevent catastrophic failures like Terra Luna and FTX. And one of the key benefits is that not only this process makes tokenomics more robust and resilient, but at the same time, it helps build community trust. And there's a whole process around this. I'm going to elaborate on this in a second, but it comes down to analyzing the business token interaction, performing structural analysis, and conducting simulations as well as stress tests. And I've created the tokenomics auditing framework, which has been published by the Journal of the British Blockchain Association, in order to facilitate the process of tokenomics auditing. This paper is open source, so you can just Google this title and you can find it online and read it. And in this paper, I elaborate in more depth in all those aspects, such as the business token interaction analysis, structural analysis, stability and stress tests, as well as presenting a checklist that the project has to go through in order to make sure that the tokenomics are properly audited. In terms of tokenomics simulations, this is another part of tokenomics design and auditing, which can greatly facilitate the perfecting a token economy, as well as ensuring that the token economy is robust and efficient. And we have developed our own tool for this process called Tokenlab. And through the use of this tool, we can do things like Monte Carlo simulations, agent-based modeling, game theoretic analysis. And you can see here an example of a screenshot from this tool, or this is an example of a Monte Carlo analysis of a very simple token economy simulation. But don't be fooled by this. Tokenlab can create simulations of arbitrary complexity for all types of scenarios and all types of projects and token economies. So it's very important that you're positioned in the right way for the next bull run. The market opportunity is massive, and not only because we're seeing a wave of institutional adoption of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. So what is very important is that you have a token economy with solid foundations which can withstand market pressures, but at the same time it signals to investors, institutional as well as retail alike, that you're taking this seriously and that the token economy is going to survive in the long run and your token is a sound investment. So what do? We do a few different things, primarily design and audit, but also we simulate token economies. So we can take a concept and transform it into a proper token economy. We can take an existing token economy and evaluate its tokenomics. And also you can simulate all that, which gives you an additional reassurance that the token economy is going to work out, as well as putting everything in a very nice report for you to show to investors, whether institutional or retail or VCs or angels. And here are some testimonials from our clients. So Igor says, thanks to your tokenomics audit, we are ready for launch. Abdul Osman from Gora, Dr. Kabakis has been instrumental in our tokenomics design. And Lance Parker, talking about me and our services, my team's services, clearly an expert in blockchain and digital economies. Okay, so these are only some of our clients, and we will be very happy to work with you next on your tokenomics design and audit. So why would you want to choose us for tokenomics services? Well, in case it didn't become apparent, there's the proven expertise that we've been doing this for a long time. Me personally, I've actually been one of the very first researchers in the space of Tokenomics. We take a holistic approach covering the full life cycle, design, auditing, and stress testing. And also, me being an expert data scientist, and this is also reflected on my team, we take a data-driven approach, focusing on rigorous data and advanced economic modeling techniques. So what's our offer? What we offer is a 30-minute free consultation. So there's absolutely no strings attached to this consultation. There's nothing we're going to offer. It's like 30 minutes free as long as you work on a solid idea. That's our only request. You just have to provide some information about the project. And if we see that, yes, you're actually taking this whole thing seriously, just on a call, just to have a nice chat, then more than happy to give you 30 minutes of a free consultation on your token economy, whether it's about designing a token economy from scratch or whether it's about an audit. So make sure to get in touch. You're going to find a link somewhere around this presentation on the webinar interface. Just make sure to click there, and that's going to send you to a calendar and the form where you can fill out your details, and you'll be able to schedule a time to speak with us. So thank you, and hope to see you again. On this presentation, I'm going to give you a quick overview of a paper that me and my team recently published on arXiv. It's about Token Lab. For those of you who don't know, Token Lab is a package I've personally created for agent-based modeling. It's a package that's meant to be used for token economies. You can simulate price dynamics and all sorts of things, some of which we're going to cover in this presentation. And one of my students at University College London used Token Lab to study speculative behavior in token economies. So that's a great example of some of the things that you can do with Token Lab. Well, also this study gives us some very interesting insights into the nature of cryptocurrency valuations and speculations. So let's start with some preliminaries. We have utility tokens, security tokens, and cryptocurrencies. In our research, we mostly focused on utility tokens. So cryptocurrencies are things like Bitcoin. They don't really have any utility other than a store of wealth. And now most tokens are utility tokens, with security tokens being a close second. The thing with security tokens being that they securitize things like, let's say, real-world assets or assets of all kinds. And hence, they usually have their own niche, whereas most of the major blockchains, most of the major crypto projects, they really have utility tokens. So Token Lab allows you to simulate all different types of tokens, but for the purposes of this research, we focused more on utility tokens. So there are a few different valuation methods, and this is where things get a bit heated because there's no, let's say, objective way to value different cryptocurrencies. So like a method that we've borrowed from more traditional, let's say, financial theory is the income approach that uses things like the discounted cash flow analysis to assess future cash flows. Then we have the network model, which, to be honest with you, it's an interesting idea, but it's not as easy to apply in cryptocurrencies, even though some people have tried. And finally, we have the quantity theory of money, which, while it has its imperfections, still remains, to a large extent, the most popular theory for valuing cryptocurrencies. In terms of how the quantity theory of money works in crypto, it's essentially an equation used in macroeconomics, and with a few small adaptations, you can use this in crypto. It's a tautology that is, you have two sides of an equation, and once you break it down, you're like, yeah, obviously A should equal B. But the key is that if you're using this to study projects, the pre-launch stage, you can come up with some assumptions of things like the expected transaction volume or the holding time, and then you can come up with some estimates as to why this around the valuation of those projects. I've done a lot of work on the equation of exchange. I also created an improved version in another paper. And it's also one of the models we're using in Token Lab to estimate the fair value of a token given a set of assumptions. And now let's move on to Token Lab. So Token Lab is an agent-based modeling tokenomics simulation library. It's open source. You can find it on GitHub. I developed this myself. If you have any questions, just drop me a message or any feature requests, and I'll be very happy to help you out. And the core idea behind Token Lab is to provide a very good balance between flexibility and ease of use. So Token Lab is primarily built to allow you to simulate different price dynamics and valuation scenarios, while at the same time making it quite simple so that within a few lines of code you can simulate most of the important things about the token economy. So the research that was recently published on arXiv, the question it tried to answer was, how can you model speculative behavior and what can we learn from that? So we broke the problem down in a few different stages. So first of all, we had the supply adjustments, then the threshold tracking, the supply manipulation, and the speculative trading allocation. So the way the system works is that there are some, let's say, basic token economy dynamics, and then there's some pools of agents, like the speculators, that they decide to make certain decisions in terms of buying or selling, depending by tracking the price dynamics as well as the price itself. So this essentially increases the complexity of the price dynamics because these agents, they remove tokens from circulation or they add tokens in the circulation. And by creating these different speculation types, we can see how the price dynamics are affected. So this might sound a bit too complicated, but you're going to see why we did this in a second. So we studied Chainlink. Chainlink is one of the biggest crypto projects. It's an oracle. It's a data broker as well, provides data to decentralized projects. And we studied the token, the price dynamics of the Link token from January 2020 all the way to July 2024. The transaction data was sourced from CoinGecko, and we ran multiple simulations, 30 iterations of that simulation multiple times in order to ensure statistical reliability. So we used historical data, and what we found, we also used different speculator archetypes. So going back to the way the speculators were designed, we decided to have 5 different types where they trade by using different styles, different take profit thresholds, different stop loss thresholds. And again, all these are behaviors that you can also observe in real crypto markets. And the final results were quite intriguing. In the next slide, I'm going to show you the full graph. But what we saw was that the simulations without the speculator consistently produced prices that were significantly below the actual market prices. So high proportions of speculative trading correlate with elevated price levels, even with identical buy-sell strategies. And you can see this here. So that's quite a long slide. So essentially what this means is the following. So Token Lab is using a pricing model in order to understand, in order to produce what is a fair value for a token, okay? And we added this element on top of the valuation that is taking into account speculators, and we have these different speculative behaviors. And what you observed is that the behavior of the speculators actually gets the token price closer to the real price, okay, which is very, very interesting. And essentially what this tells us is that, first of all, it verifies what we knew, that many of the cryptocurrencies out there, I mean, Link being one example, in the full research, we studied a few other cryptocurrencies as well. They always traded multiples during a bull run, and these multiples are to a large extent driven by this type of behavior, okay, which is fascinating because again and again we see these pump and dump dynamics in the crypto markets. And even if some of the projects, or I'd like to think most of the projects, they're not necessarily scams and they don't intend for this behavior to happen, it still does happen. Okay? And this research explains why. And it even allows us to understand how the different speculative behaviors, they converge together in order to create this outcome. So that was a very interesting finding for us. And you can read more about this in the paper we published. We also analyzed the market phases, and we saw that certain market phases, such as upward, downward, they seem to, each one of them, they're best matched with certain mixes of speculator types, right? And again, this also follows common sense. So we know that during a massive rally, the behavior of the crowd is different during a bear market. And we expect, for example, that some of the people that sell at the bottom of the market, they're driven by fear. And the people that are buying, they're driven either, because they're believers in the project or, delusional in some cases, but quite often they're like professional traders that they have better models and they can afford to wait. And all these obviously represent different appetites to risk as well as different levels of sophistication, which leads to this behavior. Again, fascinating results. And what are the key findings and implications? First of all, different market phases attract distinct speculator archetypes, which influence the price. There were some enhancements we did in Token Lab also as part of this research, which will allow you to experiment with your own dynamics, right? And to either study existing projects or to run simulations for new and up-and-coming projects. Let's say maybe you are running, maybe you're thinking of launching your own project. You need to run some simulations to better understand how to adapt some of the parameters. And the key practical application is that, I guess, the end result of this research is that now we have at our disposal a better understanding of valuations as well as how to improve valuations of existing projects during a bull run and a bear market. Obviously, the real dynamics around token projects and tokenomics, the way they're very complicated, and this study only captures part of the whole picture, but I still believe it's a step in the right direction in terms of establishing tokenomics as a serious field of study. So in terms of future research directions, and these are some of the things that we are going to work on next, and if you're interested in collaborating on some of those things with us, just let us know. First of all, we'd like to integrate more complex strategy combinations. We'd like to adapt speculator proportions to market conditions and also incorporate external events, let's say, such as news stories. Something which I also find very interesting would be to understand what are the different mixes of speculators that can lead to particular behavior. So we can use this process, let's say, against price dynamics and say, yeah, it looks like, this is the kind of speculator mix that maybe is taking place at the Link token, and there's another speculator mix for Bitcoin and so on and so forth. So in any case, I hope all this made sense. I understand, it's quite a lot to absorb. There's a paper in the description. There's a link to the paper in the description below. So just make sure to go there and read it. And if you have any questions, just feel free to shoot me an email. So thank you very much. And
in the world of blockchain, tokenomics is the engine that drives success. It determines adoption, incentivizes users, and keeps your ecosystem thriving. But without careful design and auditing, tokenomics can lead to imbalance, instability, or even project failure. Poorly designed models can cause inflation, loss of trust, or unsustainable rewards. That's why getting your tokenomics right is so critical. A well-audited tokenomics model ensures transparency, sustainability, and alignment with your project's vision. The right tokenomics doesn't just build trust, it can skyrocket your project's valuation. By creating a balanced ecosystem, you attract investors, retain users, and unlock massive growth potential. Don't leave your project's success to chance. Partner with experts who design and audit tokenomics that work. TheDataScientist.com, shaping the future of blockchain, one token at a time.